A few weeks ago, I set up this new Sims 3 legacy save file in Monte Vista with the aim for it to be my cozy comfort blanket save now that we're moving into fall and it's cold outside. The whole theme of this save is to lean into all of my favorite gameplay aspects and to just give Lolita Goth the life that she deserves now that she's been brought back to the land of the living. And today I want to update you all on how she's getting on in a current householdy style of video. I've had a few big things happen and I have a few decisions to make which I could use your input on, but more on that later. Before we get into what's going on right now, I do want to update those of you who watched the video where I set up this save file, which I posted a few weeks ago, and also to say hello to everybody who found my channel through that video. So in the previous episode, I said that I wanted to be starting semi-rags to riches style on a different lot on the other side of the map. I had played a couple of days with this being the case to make some b-roll for that original video, which included me also going to Egypt, but everything felt very rushed and like I was just trying to find a ton of collectibles to grind the early parts of this legacy so I could get a house, go on some more trips abroad and stuff like that. I didn't feel very connected to the save despite my intentions, I guess, so I started over. So I loaded my very first save, moved Lolita into this house, which is one of the starters in Monte Vista, and left myself with just 2,000 simoleons. This was actually quite refreshing because I don't normally start in houses in The Sims, and it meant that I could focus more on what I actually wanted to do, which again, as I've already mentioned, was to really focus on the world adventures and the traveling aspects of that world adventures pack. And also storyline wise, having Lolita Goth literally move to a field after being risen from the ground of the family graveyard outside the very grand and expensive Goth Manor in Sunset Valley didn't really make much sense. I don't see Lolita being an overly materialistic sim, but I'm sure that the family would have been more than happy to send her off to Monte Vista with at least a little bit of change in her back pocket, I guess. So with that said, what have I actually been up to then? After hanging around in Monte Vista for a few days, I went on a trip to China as it was the most affordable destination in the world. It was here during Lolita's very first adventure quest that we met Miss Florence Taylor, who was another explorer checking out the same tomb as us. I'll tell you a little bit more about her traits and everything later, but these two just instantly hit it off. Like, they both got the attraction pop-up thing, their star signs were compatible, they're both hopeless romantics, and Lolita found Florence like a 10 out of 10 blindingly stunning, which was very exciting. One night on the trip, they were hanging out together at base camp, and I was just raising their friendship and decided to test the waters with one romantic interaction. I turned away from my screen for a few seconds, and then they were like autonomously flirting loads and even went to watch the stars together. This was the part where I was just absolutely grinning from ear to ear, proper cheesing it up, and I almost cried a few little happy tears. I love this game so much precisely because of little moments like this. Anyway, the first trip was over and I learned that Florence is actually a townie in Monte Vista. I didn't realize that explorers weren't just randomly generated sims and that they actually come from the world that your sim lives in, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong though. So anyway, her and Lolita hung out a couple of times in Monte Vista, and after a few days and after selling some collectibles that I'd found along the way, I decided to go back to China, but this time with the prepared traveler reward trait so that we could go for 6 days instead of 3. Annoyingly, I didn't get any more quests to explore tombs, but instead I did do a lot more collecting, and I also started a martial arts quest line. I was initially a little bit meh about this and even considered just getting rid of it and trying to get something else, but I realized that I've never really explored this skill or the training groundsy areas related to the skill in China, so I started working through it. After coming back from the second trip, we made it official with Florence and moved her in a few days later, as Lolita did have a wish to do that, but before that, the night that they had their first woohoo was a little bit awkward as it was a full moon, so Florence was in her werewolf form, and somehow a zombie had also broken into the house, but hey, I've just played through a very chill, spooky day, and here we are. As a quick aside, if you're enjoying the video so far, I'd be really grateful if you dropped a like or even subscribed to the channel, as only about 5.8% of my viewers are subscribed at the moment. Doing this tells YouTube's algorithms that my content is worth showing more people, and watching to the end is also a really big help. So all in all then, I've probably played through just over 2 in-game weeks, including the days where I was traveling, which annoyingly don't get recorded in the days and weeks tracker in your home world, I don't think. Again, the biggest change or bit of progress, I guess, is that Florence has just moved in. As for her traits, she's handy, a natural cook, a hopeless romantic like Lolita, a green thumb, and easily impressed. I believe she lived alone in a big farmhouse before, but I just moved her in via NRUS, so we didn't get any of her cash or stuff like that. She's currently at level 2 in the science career working as a lab tech, and interestingly, she was romantic interests with Giacomo Modena. I don't think it was anything serious though. Her lifetime wish is to be surrounded by family, which we'll come back to that later. As for Lolita, I got her into the self-employed writing career as she is a bookworm. The only issue I've had with progressing in this so far is that she doesn't find writing fun, so she'll get too stressed to work on new books within just a couple of hours. I think I found a mod to address that though, I just need to put it in my game. Lolita is currently level 2 of this career, but that's probably because I've mainly spent my time focusing on adventuring and stuff like that. Speaking of, I've started building out the home relic collection / home museum situation, which was one of the goals I mentioned in my previous video. This is why the house does look like a bit of a mess in places. I've been taking a bit of an Animal Crossing style approach to collecting metals and gems in particular, as I want to have at least one of every type displayed in the house eventually, in like a vault or display room sort of a thing. But this is still in its very early days, and I probably won't get this established until a couple of generations in its entirety, or at least until we've moved into a much bigger house. I've also started a little garden out of the back of the house, which unfortunately doesn't have a ton of space, which is also making me think that we might need to move soon. Some zombies had gone to town on a couple of the plants during the full moon. Lolita is doing quite well with her gardening skill, even though I've not intentionally had her focusing on it. I think she got most of the experience while raiding the public garden over in China. But as Florence is a green thumb, I might have her focus more on this over Lolita. I'm not too sure yet. And this actually leads me quite nicely on to my plans going forward with this save. First, I need your help deciding what to do with Florence because she's a bit of a blank slate. I could keep her in the scientist career, but I've also played through that career not too long ago in another legacy save, so I'm craving something new. Looking at her traits, I think I could turn her into a pasta queen or Giada De Laurentiis type and have her transition into the culinary career, having her focus on learning lots of recipes and getting the garden going to cook using fresh ingredients, and maybe even work to buy the bistro or even start our own restaurant using the business as usual bistro store set. I feel like that's not something that I've fully delved into in The Sims 3, so that's an option. But also towards the start of this legacy could be a good time to dip into an active career like those introduced with ambitions. Being a handy sim, Florence could make a really great firefighter. I'm also quite unsure about her lifetime wish, as having 5 kids feels a little bit overwhelming, especially as I still want to do loads of adventuring and stuff, but what do you think? Let me know if you have any other suggestions below for what to do with Florence, but whatever happens, as she is a werewolf, her hunting abilities are going to be great for expanding the home museum that I was talking about earlier. As for our star Lolita though, I'm hoping that we can go to France soon and get some nectar making going, which now I'm thinking about it would pair really well with Florence if she does go down this culinary route. But I kind of want to try completing, in quotes, China first. I'm very undecided right now. I mainly want to focus on Lolita, upping her writing skill and progressing in the writing career, and also working on her photography skill as well. Overall, I'm having so much fun with this save file, and I'm finding myself craving more and more to hop on and play at the moment. This has truly become my comfort blanket during this time in my life where things are quite different and all a little bit up in the air now that I'm not a student. So all of that is to say, thank you so much for listening to me ramble about my silly little pixel people. It means the world to me. I hope this video might have inspired you to start your own comfort blanket save this autumn if you haven't already. If you fancy sticking around, check out the video on the screen just now, as YouTube has picked it out just for you. But other than that, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you again soon.